I'd like to bring in the panel. This panel is a balanced panel because each of our speakers represents a critical part of the system that we are discussing. Engineer Clarice Mungatia brings deep experience in embedded generation and grid integrated solar, having delivered megawatt systems and working across low voltage to high voltage network optimization. She really represents the reality of distributed energy at scale. Engineer Sylvia Mutavata, currently with GIZ and formerly with Kenya Power, right next to, across her mentor. She sits at the intersection of policy, systems operations, and renewable integration, particularly around implications for net metering implementation and open access. Engineer Eric Waruhiu brings us the developer and execution lens, working across CNI solar projects in multiple African markets with a strong focus on data-driven energy systems and real-world development constraints. Engineer Naomi Gichuhia, Manager, Distribution and Planning at Kenya Power, represents a critical perspective of how the grid is planned, expanded, and managed in a system that is becoming increasingly decentralized. So collectively, this panel spans grid planning, system operations, policy, and executions on the ground. And that's exactly what we need for this discussion. So, my first question goes, Clarice, Sylvia, and Naomi, you may chip in. What physical constraints do we have today with regards to what needs to be in place for net metering and open access?
So net metering and open access, it's a very good idea for Kenya. However, right now, one thing that we've not factored in is our network being able to handle all the multiple generations to our grid. Case in an example, if our generations are going, I believe, are going to overwhelm our systems. That is, if you have a transformer that is rated, let's say 50 kVA, your multiple generations are behind the supplier. It's going to, all these people are going to give in these sources of supply. This is going to cause thermal stresses in the transformers and also other protection equipment, which is going to result now to power instabilities. So something else, it might not be physical, it's something about control, especially now for the utility companies. I believe Kenya Power, being our main utility in Kenya, might not have visibility of these distributed generations. So it will be so hard for them to control curtailment, to control system imbalances. So as much as we are looking at the regulations, I think also our infrastructure, our operations, commercial-wise, we should all have them evolve together so that the net metering and the open access can scale efficiently. Thank you.
Yes, to add on what Clarice said, I think one of the major issues that will come, especially when we fully implement net metering and also open access, is system stability, because open access is dependent on how accessible the system is. Because if I'm generating and avoiding getting power supply from Kenya Power, but now the line is not available, then it beats the point of open access. So it's a very important point to emphasize on network stability and also network capabilities, because I cannot expect to transport power on an already overloaded line. So yes, I will have the supplier and I'll have the client, but the network will not be able to sustain the extra load and the extra capacity that I'm putting on it. So I think the main issue for me is the network capacity and stability.
Thank you. Engineer Naomi, you want to add anything?
Thank you, Anthony. Actually, what the two ladies have said is very, very accurate. And actually, the network bearing in mind that now the current will be flowing in the opposite direction, the analysis on the network must be done. But the question is, we have been talking about 600 megawatt captive generation. Where is this generation seated? Because depending on where it's seated, then we can be able to tell, is this network okay or not okay? That's one of the constraints. We have no clue where the network is seated. We have SCADA system, but that SCADA sees the system up to 66 kV. Below that, and 66 to 11 kV substations, 33 to 11 kV substations. But remember, this generation sits behind the meter. So we have no feasibility. And when we have the feasibility, then we can move on. But for now, there's so much that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is technical readiness still is a challenge. Our visibility is fairly one way. So systems behind the meter are not readily visible. So an upgrade on the network with regards to bidirectionality will be a crucial enabler for that. And that then will allow better planning in terms of what we also talked about, capacity of the lines, capacity of the substations, and the load patterns, dispatch patterns, and so on, generation patterns and dispatch needs. So great. Eric, hearing that, and being familiar with the policies around net metering and open access, do you think that developers in this room or in this country are currently able to translate these policies into real projects?
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that question. So from where I stand, the regulatory body has provided a very good regulation document or gazette. It's quite straightforward on what the developer is expected to do. And these are things that are doable and things that have already been done in existing captive plants. However, where the hard bit comes in is where now the utility has to implement the new framework, because every of the constraints that the regulatory body has put in place can be maneuvered around by the developer. Now, what's left is now the formulation or the implementation of a framework that works and handles the constraints or the shortcomings that the rest of the members have raised on the technical part.
Okay, great. So basically you're saying that from a developer's perspective, developers are actually already developing projects, but the lack of implementation guidelines, frameworks is actually what is holding back the projects from actually getting to maturity.
Yes. And with the introduction of the regulation, most of the developers have decided to design their plans, putting in place a consideration of at some point you might need to do net metering for plans that meet the regulations constraints.
Okay, great. I want to bring this back a little bit to Clarice. You have worked extensively on embedded solar within real networks. What are some of the practical constraints you see today when integrating distributed generation at scale?
All right. Yes. Let me give an example of Tatu City. We have about 3 operational solar plants right now, totaling to 4.5 megawatt peak. So in all these solar plants, one major constraint while we are doing our construction is curtailment. Unfortunately, right now we do not have any feed-in or let me say feed-in or net metering framework. So now we must curtail our generation so that we do not backfeed that to the KPLC grid. So this brings, number one, the infrastructure, export limitation to all the solar plants that we must put up. So number two, just as we've said about network upgrades. You might find we are doing a solar plant at a position where the infrastructure is not there. Case in an example, we are currently doing a 1.2 megawatt, but now the next transformer that we can use is not ready for the 1.2. So you must upgrade this so that it can fit the generation. So mainly one of the constraints is number one, the curtailment. I hope this net metering and framework will come up and now we can start operation of it and also move to scale so that when we are doing our solar plant, we're not worried about we need to curtail. Over the weekend, the industrials are not much working, so we must look at curtailing this solar generation. So one of the main constraints I would say is the curtailment of all the generations that we have. Yeah.
Interesting. So absolutely important that we appreciate some of the technical challenges and realities. And we shall come back to this point, but I think let me just go ahead and probably just ask a question to Sylvia now. From a system and policy advisory perspective, how ready do you think the Kenyan grid is today to support net metering at scale and wheeling at scale, given your experience and sitting on both sides of the table, where now you're in the private sort of development space, and previously you sat at Kenya Power?
So thank you for that question. I think we at a fairly good space. Our policy, the Net Metering Regulations 2024, gives us the guidelines on how to conduct net metering. And we have the Energy Act, which is the umbrella governing act in terms of the energy sector. We have the regulatory of the EPRA. So in terms of policy, I think we are there. The next step would be going directly into implementation. And I think Kenya Power has done significant steps, with EPRA having announced that customers can actually submit applications for net metering. So Kenya Power is in the process, which we have also been involved with them, is in the process of putting systems in place to ensure that, to ensure easy approval and easy review of applications for the customers when they come in. When the systems are in place, Kenya Power or EPRA will announce on it. So I think from this place of privileged information, I can say that there's a lot of work going into it, so that even when we begin the 100% scaling up of net metering, it will be a smoother transition. We still have network constraints, but again, this grid is so big, and Kenya Power being limited in terms of finances, they just can't invest in everywhere in the grid. So I think that also calls for visibility. So I think it would be good to give it like a 5-year rollout plan, where now we see Kenya Power improving the grid as necessary, because you can't again do a blanket project to improve the grid. You have to focus where you put in your money. So I think with a bit of time, I think Kenya Power can easily manage the teething issues that will come with net metering and also wheeling. Yeah.
Thank you, Sylvia. And a good segue into the next question, because what I heard from you is there's a lot of work happening in the background. There's a lot of investments that need to be made, and Kenya Power plus all the other involved stakeholders are busy working behind the scenes to make this a reality. So, Naomi, segueing, coming in from that, from a distribution planning perspective, how is Kenya Power preparing for a future where consumers are also generators, and where you have distributed generators also competing with you for the same consumers?
Thank you, Anthony. Actually, Kenya Power is doing a lot in preparation to handle the net metering. Remember, all this time we were used to power flowing in one direction. And all of a sudden now we have customers who are generating, and so we have power flows backwards. Remember, the system was designed initially, even the protection system, everything was facing one direction. So there's a lot of training that's ongoing at the moment. We have the metering platform that now will be handling prosumers and not consumers, not customers. Now we are going to have a prosumer metering platform. And the kind of training that's ongoing at the moment, a lot of training is taking place to help us to handle this kind of network that for all these years, for more than 100 years, we've not been handling such. We knew that generation is central, then a transmission network, and then distribution, and then our customers. So having now the currents flowing backwards, we have a lot of preparation that we are doing. But to just give, to encourage everyone here, you can rest assured that there's so much that's happening at the background. We are working with EPRA, and we are good. We are communicating, and we are in agreement that we are moving in the right direction. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And just to follow on from there, we know in the recent past there is a move to move system operations away from Kenya Power into an autonomous system operator. How is that going, and is that also taking cognizance of the need to prepare for net metering and open access?
The proposal to have KETRACO handle the system operations, yeah, that one has been there. But remember, the system operations, like now our national control system, our NCC, National Control Center, the visibility is the transmission, the generation, up to a certain level. Now, net metering sits behind the meter. So still, even if the KETRACO will be will take over the system control function, the customer, where these assets, the net metering assets, the solar system and the inverters, where they sit, the feasibility will actually not be with KETRACO. It will still be with Kenya Power, because KETRACO will now see the generation, transmission until the point where they dispatch now to the distribution network. And remember, now the customers sit at the tail end of the distribution network. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I guess what I was striving to is to get clarity on, as the transition on system operation happens, are the capabilities, because we talked about one of the constraints being, the way the network was designed was one way, visibility is only one way, protection systems are one way. So I hope that the relevant authorities take this opportunity, even as a new paradigm sets in, to actually start to put in that system technical readiness, even from a monitoring perspective. But switching gears again into execution reality, and I want to call on Eric again here. From your experience and that of your peers in the development space, how close are we today to actually executing projects under net metering, for example, or open access frameworks? Given even the regulatory uncertainty that is there, I guess what I'm asking, despite that, do you have real demand? Do you have ideas? Do you have concepts? Do you have trials or prototypes?
Yes. So we are very close to, or we can say we are, apart from the implementation of the framework, we are ready to start with net metering. This is something we've done in other countries within the continent, and it has worked fine. So mainly what the regulation is asking us to do to change the one direction flow of power, we are going to change the infrastructure to be able to track the bidirectional flow of power. And this, I think this will be the main opener when it comes to now getting to integrate both systems all together. More importantly, what we have seen go through happening in other countries is that the feasibility study that is also being done here is very important to ensure that both parties or both parts of the system, the grid and also the solar plant, are going to be safe. So what's important is protection of both plants. For now, the regulation is mainly focusing on protecting the grid, and that is very important. However, the solar plant will also need to have a stable grid. Otherwise, most of the solar plants will not run on an unstable grid or an unavailable grid. So in addition to now the feasibility of the solar plant working alongside the grid, we would also prefer to improve the stability and also the quality of the grid. Thank you.
And just to follow on from there, from a developer's perspective, what are your concerns or what are your views or models around curtailment, dispatch, when it comes to net metering and projects?
So from a developer's perspective, net metering generally or the free access framework generally will increase the revenue. So even with curtailment, there's not that much. There's less to lose actually. So even with the prioritization of other sources, we'll still be getting more revenue with net metering, like the current situation.
Thank you. And just coming back to you, Sylvia, what positive effects or impacts do you see net metering and open access having on the grid system and on the utilities?
I would think of one, voltage stability, especially in areas where voltage levels are really bad because of their distance maybe from the closest generation. So that's a plus for the utility. And then also the implementation of net metering and all the other systems that will have to come in place for the successful implementation of net metering will give Kenya Power visibility for all the generation that affects their dispatch, because currently most of the captive generation is not visible to Kenya Power, and it affects how they dispatch electricity, because during the day you have a lot of generation that is not on the grid, and then in the evening when the sun is going down, there's a lot of demand that comes back to the grid. So with the implementation of net metering, they will have visibility to be able to understand where these generations are coming in, and also the supposed loads that come in after sunset. So I think it will be good in the area of load dispatch and also voltage stability. Thank you.
Thank you. And Clarice, anything to add on that?
Not much, but I do agree. Voltage stability will be enhanced, especially on let me say the rural areas, or where the feeder are the back feeds of the grid. So that is one plus. Also, I think it will also enable the utility company to manage, it will be able to manage, yes, dispatch with now the visibility and able to control these generations. So, yeah.
Thank you. So I'm hearing that ancillary services will potentially be a plus when we have net metering and open access implemented. And I'm also hearing that there will be revenue, for the utility in that space, and probably for the prosumers and obviously providing these services. But I think it's also critical for developers. A good insight there that, especially for the areas, in the rural areas or the far-flung areas, commercially, we know they'll probably make more attractive locations for large private-owned plants, because land is probably in abundance and cheaper there. So there's lots of benefits from everybody. And I think this is important because, we tend to approach sometimes conversations with the regulators or utilities as a lose-lose, win-lose rather, where the private sector will win, but the public sector will lose. But we can see that there's a path where everybody actually wins in this space. And speaking of the regulator, yesterday we had a bit of a snippet on terms of, where to look at for potential, wheeling tariffs. And he did mention that wheeling is currently happening. Tanzania is wheeling power all the way from Ethiopia through the Kenya network, and that could be a proxy for us if we want to sort of fine tune our models, our commercial models on what that wheeling tariff would look like. I'd probably just want to ask Naomi and Sylvia here, what does a sustainable wheeling tariff look like for the utilities? You don't have to give us numbers, but give us what you're able to give us in terms of insights and ideas.
Okay. Wheeling. Remember, there's this network that's already in place. The cost of this network that you're using, the maintenance, because I don't know whether the maintenance will still remain under KPLC. So this has to be done case by case, because like now the wheeling example that you've given, Tanzania getting power from Ethiopia through our transmission, that's at transmission level. But I believe that if we are to do, if wheeling, let's say we are wheeling now within our country, I think the assets involved has the cost of the assets, the maintenance of those assets. It has to be done case by case, and I don't think that it's anything that somebody can just say this is the exact good wheeling charges, because you look at what you are wheeling. Are you just wheeling 2 megawatts, or are you wheeling a whole 60 megawatts? Are you and in this country like Mburu cement, I think even to get a customer who is drawing some between 20 and 30 MVA, as we call it, MVA is quite something. But what are you wheeling? And I think the challenge that we've had is there's a term, bankability. Are the proposals bankable? Have you done the return on investment? So I think this has to be case by case, and it has also to depend on how much are you wheeling, so that we do not just say that you can just wheel, and then maybe you're just wheeling 1 megawatt or 2 megawatts, and then in the wrong land you discover it might not be that expensive. It might not be that profitable. Then the network maintenance. Who is maintaining? Is it the one who is wheeling or KPLC? And I think all that has to be done and put into the models so that someone can say, this is a bankable, or this is a good tariff, this is a good wheeling tariff. But I think we were to get somebody from EPRA, and maybe that question can be answered by anyone from EPRA who is handling this wheeling charges issue. Thank you.
To add on what Naomi said, wheeling is using someone's assets to transport electricity. So because our energy is calculated either in voltage, current, or power, the more the current, the more the wear on the infrastructure. So the level of power that you're wheeling should be a factor in how much you pay for your wheeling, and also the cost, a fraction cost of the maintenance that the line has to go through so that it is available every time you need to wheel, and also the capex, because there is a cost that was involved in creating that line which has to be recouped. So I think it should be a small factor in the wheeling tariff. So I think those are the three things I would say that should give direction in terms of coming up with a wheeling tariff.
Thank you for that, for those insights. Coming back to Eric and Clarice, from the private sector where you sit, what do you think are the top 3 things that need to be done to actually transition this policy statement into reality?
Okay, thanks a lot. So the main thing that I think we need to do to achieve or to get net metering started is to take the first step into formulating the framework and implement it. We can do a pilot program, which can be very helpful to just see how many other constraints we are not seeing. However, we just need to take the first step, and once we get net metering or the free access running, we can definitely make it work. The other thing I had mentioned is the stability of the grid. That is going to be very important because for developers, we need to, as we invest, we need to look at how much our plant is going to be utilized. So there are some regions where the grid is very unstable or very unavailable, and investing into a plant that will gain you enough extra revenue through net metering does not make sense. So now with a stable grid, you are going to get more insights to go for net metering. Thanks.
So in addition to what Eric has said, it's part of stability is looking at the infrastructure. Like Naomi said, our designs currently are more of one directional. So now making them bi-directional. I think one of the things is smart metering rollout across industrials, residential, so that all this net metering can work. Also the framework also to work. I think the question on wheeling tariff, that's for us to move on, we must all be able to know what is going to be my operational cost. And this will be able now to have us as private investors or private utility engage into the open access or the net metering. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that. So what I'm hearing is there's a readiness from a policy perspective. There's work that is actually happening behind the scenes for that readiness, technical readiness of the grid, of the system, of the various institutions that are needed, to make this a reality. What I'm also hearing, there's a lot of investment that still is needed. And the question for me is, and I'm going to ask this to the entire panel, where is this investment going to come from? Is it a priority at the moment for our utilities? Or do we have other ideas on how these investments can actually be piled in? Because there's lots of developers around the room who are just waiting, for the button to be pressed, start. But policy is there, but we've had all the challenges that are there with grid readiness and the various investments that need to be made. So just, starting with you, Naomi, and we come this way. What's your view on how this investment is going to happen? Is it happening? Who's making these investments? And what models do you see? Are we seeing is it PPPs? Is it fully KPLC? Is it and so on? Just your views.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you, Anthony. First of all, there's something that Eric has said about a pilot. And when it comes to a system sometimes can be a bit complicated. And there is a pilot plan so that we can actually engage from a point of knowledge, not an abstract. Because sometimes in a forum like this, we could just be talking from an abstract, but not what is happening on the ground. So I just thought, let me just make that comment. And then, Anthony, your question is, I look at investments in various ways. Definitely, KPLC will invest in its preparing the technical staff to handle what's happening. A lot of capacity building, that's investment. It will invest in the human resource. But now when it comes to the infrastructure, remember the meters that we have at the moment are one-way meters. We'll need to change those meters so that we can also be checking on the imports. That definitely will be done by the investor. EPRA, I believe EPRA has a lot of investments to do to even educate the public, the investors, such forums. EPRA has quite a lot to do. And we also have a lot to invest even on making sure that we are able to see the 600 megawatts that is already there. Because sometimes it can be very... there's somebody in EPRA who said safety first. Which inverters are in this system? Are they able, let's say I'm maintaining this line, the line that supplies this place, and there is a solar plant here. How safe are the people who are working on that network? Is the inverter capable of isolating, making sure that nothing goes back to the grid? So there is quite a lot that's happening, and until everything is clear, and maybe even to surprise you, even the inverters that are already in the network. We talked to KEBS and they were not even sure whether those inverters had the capability to isolate when we have isolated the network for maintenance. So we are even not very sure that when we isolate our network for maintenance, that someone who has who has a solar plant here cannot backfeed. So there's a lot that's happening, and we are not asleep. We are trying to catch up, but there is hope. So the investments will be by different players in the market and even by the investors themselves, not one person investing for the rest. Thank you.
Eric, anything to add?
I totally agree with Naomi. The investments will be across all parties, including even the consumer. Because as she has mentioned, they are supposed to replace the meter with the bidirectional one. This one will fall on the consumer side. However, when we look at the advantages that we are getting from the metering, it's worth taking this step.
So I will add on what they have said. From an international developer perspective, there is a lot of interest to support Kenya Power in terms of visibility and also forecasting. There are several countries who are looking in how to help Kenya Power with generation forecasting. So I think that on top of the investors, the utilities, and the regulator, there's a lot of international focus on helping Kenya Power with visibility for the captive systems and also for the other generation. So yeah.
All right. I'll also add, and like Naomi said, I think the investment cuts are across the board, and most investors will need to know what are the risks, what is my net value, what is my IRR at the end of it all. So ideally, I would say open access, actually, it's a good investment, but up until we get to know all the risks associated, all the commercial constraints or commercial benefits that are associated, then we can look at an investor coming to invest maybe in a private company who wants to have open access generations, so that they just know on what they are really investing at the end of it all.
Thank you. I think just before I turn over the mic to the audience for questions, what I'm hearing is a lot of readiness, but a lot of work still to happen. And I think what I come away with from this conversation is a lot of awareness from the utility side on the things that still need to be done to make these two pieces, net metering and open access, a reality. I can't help but feel, for those of you who love movies, there's this movie, I think it's Ice Cube, who has a child to take care of a weekend, and they go on a road trip, and the kid keeps asking, "Are we there yet?" And it gets very annoying. So I'm feeling that, we're having that "are we there yet" moment as we as we discuss net metering and open access. So a big round of applause for my panel. Thank you. And I don't know who will help with moving the mic around. We'll do a bit of questions.
Mine is more a comment, so I'll just keep it succinct. I think what is important is for all of us to agree that we want to see open access. There's a million challenges. Even after we do all the studies we want and do all the system studies and all the technical studies and catalog all the things that need to be invested in, we will not know all the challenges until someone actually starts doing wheeling. So for me, I'm more of the view that we get the minimum that we have to, then let the people who want to do wheeling apply. Once they apply, this guy is wheeling on Turkana line, for instance. There's an extra gigawatt you can put on that line. This guy wants to put 200 megawatts. The consumer is in Suswa. That is a very different story from someone who is wheeling, let's say, to this hotel from town. So if we wait until we have this perfect situation where now we know all the constraints, we know all the things we need to put in, I am sure in 10 years, we will still be here with Ice Cube's child asking, are we there yet? So for me, my humble plea is if we are all headed in the same direction, we all agree there's many problems we'll face, and then let's break the barrier, and then on a case-by-case basis, we solve it. When we solve for this, we know, next time we're doing this one, this happened in the other one. But if we wait to first create this environment where now everybody can just jump in, I think we will keep on waiting.
I wanted to make a comment that we tend to discuss, when we're discussing net metering, we tend to discuss the large systems and not the residential systems. And in the Act, there's a clear instruction that there needs to be residential. When I was talking to my colleague at Davis Shurtleff, I asked him, do you know anything about what's happening with net metering? He said, nobody has informed us. So I think that the private sector and the residential sector and the consumers need to be made aware because the market is there. What residential Kenyans want is energy security more than anything else. They'd like the meter to spin backward, but if they had a net metering system, that would enable them to do the final thing, which is my final point. Anthony asked, where is investment going to come from? For these residential and SME systems, it's going to come from local finance flows. When I talk to Equity Bank, when I talk to Co-op, when I talk to NCBA, they are waiting in line to finance these systems. And if there's a stamp from Kenya Power that this net metering plan for this residence or SME was approved, they will have a piece of paper that says, I'm bank manager, this system is proper, it meets a technical standard, and it's going to return money to my client, so I will provide a loan for this system. So to answer the final one, where is the finance going to come from? There is money in Kenya, there is green money in Kenya, in all of these banks waiting, and especially the residential sector is ready to invest in solar for their small 2 to 10 kilowatt systems.
When I listen about the slow pace, listen to all this, how long it's taking to make this net metering, open access come to life, and then it seems like the concern is more of how much revenue will Kenya Power lose. I feel we're being so myopic as a country. Investors are leaving by the droves. They've been leaving for a while because I started my career 30 years ago. The company I was in was an FMCG company. It was making detergents, it was making spreads, it was making personal care, making them in real factories here in Kenya. While I was there, and fine, I left. But over time, slowly, we stopped making toothpaste, it was moved to Egypt. We stopped making, some other products, it was moved to South Africa. We stopped making this and that, it was moved to Ethiopia. Today, that company is a shell of its former self. It's just a trading company. we continue like this, not just being concerned about KPLC's revenues, instead of seeing the big picture, we have 55 million Kenyans. Where are they going to work? Are they all going to be in FX trading and all these things I see on the internet? I mean, if we are serious about bringing down the power cost, our concern should not be from EPRA, from KPLC, from the government, or whoever it is slowing down this process. The concern should be we need investment to come back here. If I'm an investor, I don't care where I make my money from. So I'm not going to be like, I like Kenya, it's got nice weather, the people are nice. I only want to make a return. So if your power is too expensive, I will go where it isn't. And there are plenty of countries where power makes sense. So we need to be a little more serious than, yeah, we're getting there, we're working on it. We need to get there. We need to get there quickly. And if the FDI comes in, Kenya Power will make so much money. You'll be wondering why we didn't do this earlier. So anyway, I'm not knocking Naomi. I'm just saying, please just send this message
it's all
back.
meant constructively.
Yeah.
Mine is not so much on the net metering, but I want to tie it up with an area that we have discussed before, that is time of use tariff. Just a quick one from, I think, Naomi, is time of use tariff starting from the Deep Valley to off-peak 1. I think there are 4 categories. Each of those perhaps would require data, and especially, so I don't know whether the meters are being supplied by KPLC itself or the ones that have been bought directly by your consumers, whether there are standards to ensure that the meters are able to, or are already programmed or come with registers to capture that data. And what preparations are you doing on your side when this is implemented, the time of use tariff in the proposed format, to ease or to efficiently execute monthly billing and reconciliation of energy consumption data? Thank you.
Currently, we are transitioning to smart meters, especially for the large power customers, commercial and the industrial customers, and we have visibility of a good number of them. And I think those meters have a lot of data. So even the time of use, we are transitioning towards that.
This is going to be tough on Sylvia and Naomi. Investors don't invest in hope, so don't say we hope. We need predictability, we need clarity. So we are not hoping, we just want whoever is responsible to do what they need to do so that we're in there. Now, going back to the several points you raised. It's surprising EPRA is not here, but I am EPRA, as I said before, so understand. When you make regulations, they become law. And when you're going to implement them, if there's going to be a period of implementation, Sylvia is saying 5 years, it is written in the law. And that's what was done for solar water heaters. Simply because the stakeholders in the solar water heater regulations, when it was being developed, the stakeholders understood that you need that time, you needed that 5 years to do it. None of that was mentioned for net metering. The regulations were developed over more than 5 years. Nobody paid attention. When they were supposed to take effect, then now you start raising issues. Whether that's incompetence or negligence, I don't know. Yeah. So giving people 5 years to do what they should have done 5 years ago is not acceptable. That's the way I see it. I might be wrong. There might be systems, but that's important. Willing. When I negotiate with KPLC, right now for my PPA, they say in terms of, instead of termination, I will. And that's their position, meaning they understand and have the terms and conditions for willing when they're telling me that. Now, for you to say that, and that I've heard from Ketraco as well, so I have the inside information. For them to tell me that it will be done, like you said, for a specific line, is all good. But please, I'm an investor, I need predictability. There's a formula. give me the formula that if you're transmitting, and I'll put in the money to know I'm willing from point A to B. Give me a formula like the fuel cost formula that I should know that I can do my pre-work before I come to you to tell me that, well, to understand that this is economical or not. So if I'm doing a 132 wheeling, 1 megawatt per kilometer per this, it's not news. This technology is happening all over the world. There's a formula. Give us that formula so that we know, so that when I come to you, well, I say it's not worth it or it's worth it. Yeah. So hoping that when the regulations are done and then we start working, I don't think that's the right way to do it. Equipment specification, the harmonics and the noises. You go to South Africa, I mean, equipment manufacturers will tell you they exist. So we simply say for you to enroll in the net metering regulation, your inverter or your interface or your protection must be this category. It's not for Kenya Power to reinvent the wheel. These things exist. The documentation is there. Someone is not doing their job. So, I mean, hoping and waiting and hoping, it's not convincing.
To me, we are the best chance at Kenya Power to implement. You have a CEO who is techno-savvy, and I think you should take advantage of the current CEO to do what we need to do in net metering. If it is to see him, we go see him, so that we get this thing running in the shortest time possible. I sit at the level of an association called Africa Smart Meter Association. And last year, we were called by Senate. And one of the recommendations we gave Senate was we liberalize the buying of meters. And I think we were called because the only tender that goes to court in Kenya Power is only for meters. Every tender in cycle, there has to be court cases on meters. And we were asking, these are gadgets that the private sector can buy and release money, Kenya Power to do something else with that money. So I think this is something that we are still pushing. Consumers can buy meters that are verified, so that even this process can begin. Already our company is doing, we are metering the generation from Kengen. I mean, we supplied them with the top of the range meters. And I think Kenya Power, we still get very low level kind of meters. The smart meters, I mean, when you sit and you show your meter in a conference, they tell you this meter was here 6-7 years ago. So you need to be exposed to very new technology that is in the market. But so far, I think we need to match to Kenya Power, take advantage of the current CEO, and I think we are going to start this net metering as soon as possible. I'm happy to see Naomi here. We worked together some time ago. Thank you.
Let's start with Naomi. I know you've had the brunt of the question and the frustration from the room.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Ngomeli, for those kind words. Yeah, indeed, actually, our MD is so much aware of what we are doing. And actually, is it last week they were somewhere outside the country, and actually they were discussing the same issue. So I know he's very much aligned. But points taken, especially on the low quality meters, I think that one I can only take it as a feedback from this conference. Now, for the inverters, point taken, and also the fact that now it's 5 years down the line and we have not moved, that's also taken, and we'll pass the message back. I hope next time something will be done. But having said that, yesterday when Engineer Okech was talking, there is something that he said, that the drivers, what is driving us to this captive generation. And the first one was cost of power. My parting shot is, what can we do to reduce the cost of power? Can we adopt the Ethiopia model? Because the number one thing that EPRA, Engineer Okech talked about, that's driving us to captive generation is cost of power. We've been here for 2 days now. You see the way the supply is stable. You can't even tell that actually we were just having very heavy rains recently. I'm sure even during those rains, we all expected to be out of supply for many days, but Kenya Power actually has done a lot. And we are okay. I hear your frustration, because 5 years down the line, okay, I hear you, but I hear your frustration about 5 years waiting for this net metering. And actually, even for us in Kenya Power, we desire to see it moving. It's also very frustrating for us to feel that we are actually tied to something that's not moving. We desire to see it moving. But remember, this is a system. And for a system, it cannot be designed at a conference level. Engineers have to sit to do the scenarios, to do the models. And when we start moving, we'll move from a point of everyone is safe. A safe network for you as a customer, and a safe network for the engineers who are working on the system.
Thank you, Naomi.
So thank you so much. And I hope that next year, the story will be different. Thanks.
Okay. What I would like to say as we close this session, it has been a very good session that we have in this discussion. There has been a lot of silence. I know it's, as everybody has said, it's later than we expected to have net metering running, but at least we have had the conversation, and let's hope we are going to get something out of it. And hopefully the next time we are having such a sitting, we are discussing about the outcomes of maybe a pilot program of now the actual net metering working. Thanks for that.
I would also want to agree with the panelists that we hope to start, and by next year we have lessons from the first year of implementing net metering, and also we hope to dip the feet in the water instead of sitting in boardrooms and in conferences and talking about the challenges. We just do it and figure it out as we go. Thank you.
Thank you again. I agree, and maybe amplify what the panelists have said. Mr. Chairman, that was a very good comment. I think you never know how deep the water is until you get in. So, yes, the pilots will help us move forward. And, you learn from your previous mistakes, and what you've done well, you take it through. So I think, as Naomi has said, I hope the next conversation will be more of what more can we do with our systems? What more can we do with the open access after we've done the pilots and we've seen what is bringing? So thank you. This has been quite a conversation. I think our investors are very eager to have this going now, like ASAP. So thank you so much.
My parting shot is, if I was to summarize it, I'd say, one, what I've had, my takeout is that this is not rocket science. Let's not reinvent the wheel. It's been done elsewhere. There are formulas, there are standards on equipment already existing. It is known. So yes, let's not spend too much time preparing, but let's move, because these things are already there. The second thing that I've had very passionately from the front of this room, this is not about Kenya Power. It is actually about Kenya's future. It's about lowering the cost of power. It's about enabling job and wealth creation. It's about stability for this country, for posterity. And the last thing that I've had is the funding is available locally. We saw for the comments from the banks yesterday when they were here talking about financing. So this is one of the ways that we can actually talk about de-risking investments in captive power. So the funding is available. It's not rocket science. It's been done elsewhere. It's about Kenya's future. That's a bigger picture that we all need to think about here. So thank you everybody for your presence, your attention. And it's been, I think of the panels of the last 2 days, this one had mostly comments and no questions. So that's interesting. I don't know if you guys just want to go for Easter already, but we're there. Thank you very much.